Dustin Johnson notched his 14th career tour victory at the WGC-Mexico Championship over the weekend. And Ryan, perhaps even more impressively, this was his first event as the #1 player in the world. What are your thoughts on his staying power at the top?
Yeah, pretty impressive, right? I think just the 5th player all time to win his first event as a #1, which is impressive in its own right. But what I liked seeing out of Dustin and why I think there's going to be quite a bit of staying power at #1 is he's winning a lot of different ways with a lot of different tests. You know, he wins the U.S. Open amidst controversy of the highest degree at Oakmont, right? He goes to the Genesis, he wins in a blowout, so we know he can do that. This week in Mexico, he was tested. Let's face it, he had a 4-stroke lead going into that back 9. He was tested when that lead was gone. All of a sudden, he's tied with Jon Rahm, and he answered the bell. And learning how to win many different ways on many different style golf courses leads me to believe that Dustin has found a way, figured out how to win, and he's going to be winning for a while at #1.
He's certainly very confident, right? He seems completely unruffled out there. And Scott, I'm so glad you're in studio today because certainly we know that DJ has been a great player for a long time. But are there positive swing changes that you've seen recently that have led him to the top at this point?
I think one of the biggest things is his confidence in his short game. And Gary Koch was talking about it, and his coach, they've spent a lot of time inside 150 yards, which most of the time he's inside 150 yards, whether it's a 500-yard par 4 or a 600-yard par 5. So being able to do that, working with the Harmons, working with his brother, and you said earlier he's got a TrackMan out there, so he knows how far he hits his clubs. He's fading the ball off the tee, and he's hitting it farther, and he's got control of his game inside 150 yards. When his putter gets hot, I mean, he could have a run for a long time.
Well, and it certainly brings up the fact that this course was not a long course, right? It looked long on paper, over 7,000 yards. However, Ryan, the altitude made it seem more like it was maybe 6,400 yards.
How about that first hole by Dustin? A 315-yard par 4. He's driving it with an iron, and he hits about a 15-footer for eagle to start off his round. So that's a different type of golf. I mean, he's hitting pitching wedge 185 yards. But what Scott talked about, that wedge game, yeah, he's worked hard to get that wedge game in order. Yet when you're driving it that far and you're sitting there having 120, 110, 100 yards in for Dustin Johnson, I mean, it's almost like a chip, Scott, with the type of game he has.
And you certainly can't help but look at the fact that he's very settled now, right? He seems to have a very happy life with his fiancée, Paulina Gretzky, has a 2-year-old son, another baby on the way. We've seen a lot of players, when they get that family situation stable and happy, just kind of go into the stratosphere. Dustin Johnson may be a new one now.
Yeah, and golf's all about routines. You know, you've got a family, you have your routine with the kids. So when you travel on tour, they always talk about, is everything stable? So being able to have that home life with the Gretzkys, I mean, it's really good. And that's just going to do nothing but help them, because it's all about routines out there, because traveling is very difficult. And when you have a family, it's more difficult. So when you're able to do that, then you can really get a good groove going.